Great, great. Well, welcome everyone to the first Pearson Business Book Club. I'm really excited for everyone who's here with us live and who also might be watching this on demand. The plan is that every month we're going to choose a business or personal development book and invite the author to come discuss the book and answer your questions. We'll also have a masterclass or workshop from the author to explain or highlight a concept from the book and to discuss things more deeply. So our book this month is The Leader's Guide to Resilience by Audrey Tang, and hopefully you can see Audrey there. Say hello, Audrey. We've got a 50% promo code through pearson.com at the moment if you've yet to buy a copy. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So please use the question and answer function here on Zoom if you want to ask a question. Just see if we've got any questions yet. No? So Audrey is the author of 3 Pearson books. And we've known each other for a few years now, haven't we, Audrey?
We have, but we've not met in person yet, which is really, it's weird, but that's life, isn't it? That's how we've become now.
Yeah, gosh, it is a fact of life. And just to give a bit about your background, you're a chartered psychologist, an award-winning author, with a focus on practical self-improvement. You've also got a podcast, a radio show, and you're resident psychologist on Channel 4's Don't Diet, Lose Weight. And I must plug this. We also found out this week that the book we're talking about today, The Leader's Guide to Resilience, was runner-up in the leadership category at the Business Book Awards this year. It was highly commended. So hopefully, you know, if you haven't got a copy yet and you're yet to be convinced, this might be the thing. So we're really pleased about that. So congratulations, Audrey. So yeah, should we kick off? We'll start these things with a few questions, sort of the dialogue between us, and then sort of move quickly to the sort of workshop part so people can get what they've come for. But so Audrey, tell me why did you want to write the book?
Well, I've always loved writing. I think that was the thing I've always wanted to do. I'm a teacher by trade. That's how I qualified. And I had the opportunity to do a PhD. Following that, I honed my writing skills and then really got into, because my PhD was on the business side of psychology, where people such as frontline personnel experience a lot of burnout. And the question was, is it because of the job itself, or is it because of the other factors surrounding that job? And it turns out it's the other factors surrounding the job. And I felt I had a lot to impart. And thanks to yourself taking a chance on me about 6 or 7 years ago, that's when I produced Be a Great Manager Now, followed by The Leader's Guide to Mindfulness, and now The Leader's Guide to Resilience. And I wanted to write this one in particular because I'm fascinated with how people respond to adversity and the differences in response. But in particular, the body of research in resilience doesn't talk about bouncing back, which is the colloquial approach to resilience. It talks about springing forward. It talks about adversity creating the conditions to thrive. And that really sits with my positive psychology approach, where I don't do the coaching or the counseling which moves you from not okay to okay. There are people far better than I to do that. But I look at how to move you from okay to flourishing. And resilience really sits well in that. Yes, you have to survive, but once you've survived, then you can grow.
And we all need resilience, don't we? I mean, think even never mind what's going on at work, in our personal lives, and with everything that's going on in the world. It's I think it's a fantastic subject to start with. And so tell me, Audrey, what surprised you about writing this book? Obviously it's your third, but you know, anything that was interesting?
The global pandemic is what surprised me. I wasn't prepared for that. And I know the book was commissioned before the pandemic, and that's because it's clear there's a need for resilience in leadership in general and in the workplace. However, when we all were thrown into lockdown and we were experiencing firsthand, business were experiencing firsthand, and I was watching all of this happen, then I could actually look at what I was writing and be able to understand what it's like to live it, and be able to tweak some of the tools and some of what was going to go into the book based on what people really needed. And that's what I love about the Leader's Guide to Resilience. It was very much of the moment when I was writing, and as you all know, because we had that discussion, the chapters that went into the original proposal changed as we came out of the global pandemic. Well, we're not out of it yet, but as we navigated it, and that turned into the book as it stands now. And I think I'm more proud of it now, because it's much more meaningful. It's much more relevant, and it's much more active, rather than almost too theoretical. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And as awful as the pandemic has been, it was a real testing space for those skills. And yeah, we all sort of appreciate them more now, I'm sure.
Hugely. And we also, I think, began to see what worked. And so there was, I added a chapter about ethics into the book, and about sustainability, because those things were important. But actually, as we had this opportunity to redraw our landscape, those things were able to be embedded into how we were going to structure the new business or the new way of working. And I think we had an opportunity with the pandemic as well. And hopefully I was able to explore that opportunity in the book.
Yeah, definitely. And so how do you want readers to feel about reading your book? You know, how do you want to sort of the feeling that they're left with afterwards?
Well, hopefully not like my husband, who always says to me, "You're using your teacher voice again, aren't you?" So I'm not there to lecture you. I would like people to read it. It's quite straightforward. It's quite straight talking. I'm quite a challenging coach or trainer, but I want you to feel like I'm your cheerleader. I'm on your side. And yes, I'm sometimes going to tell it as it is, but at the same time, I really want what's best for you. But I also don't want you to become dependent on me. And so one of the things I say in the book, and also in all of my classes, is use what works for you. Tweak it if you want to. Change it, adapt, make sure it suits you. Learning is a pick and mix. And so learn, grow, use the tools that are around you, but make sure if it works for you, use it, and you like it, great. But if you don't have to use that one anymore. So make sure it works for you.
I like that. Yeah, it would be just off-putting if you said just persist with everything and until it happens. But yeah, tailor it to you and sort of make it your own. I like that. Great. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Audrey, so you can lead us through this stress busting workout. So take it away.
Thank you. Well, thank you, first of all, for joining me and joining us at this book club. And I'm really excited about this. I'm going to ask you all a question, which every day turns probably all, or at least 99% of you, into liars. Are you ready? How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything is going on around me, and it's taking all of my ability to stay afloat, but I'm fine. I've just been given highly commended and I'm feeling on top of the world, but I'm fine. We use fine as a nicety. But the problem is we get so used to using the phrase I'm fine, we begin to believe it ourselves. And then we begin to dismiss all of those other feelings, which are actually giving us indications that something is amazing or something really isn't right. And the very basis of stress busting is learning to listen to some of those emotions, learning to listen to some of those feelings. The worrying or scary thing about learning to listen to those feelings is the fear that it's going to become overwhelming. And this is one of the biggest issues that we have in mental well-being. So often people come for help at the point of crisis. And at that point, sometimes the help that you need is far greater than actually even a therapist can give to you at that moment. But what I'm here to say is, if you build up little and often and keep working at your mental and emotional fitness, exactly as you would physical fitness, you will improve little by little your mental and emotional well-being. And if you're able to do that, what you can then do is not only manage a little bit more of life's roller coaster without feeling overly overwhelmed, but also you can find that headspace to take effective action. If you've ever tried taking action under stress, chances are it won't work quite as well as you would have liked. And the other problem is, neither do we. So let's have a think about us, using a sponge as a metaphor. Let's imagine you are this sponge, okay? And throughout your day, you are having to mop up other people's psychodramas and some of your own as well. So you're mopping and you're mopping and you're mopping. And that's fine, except it doesn't stop because we normalize it. How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. I can take more. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. You want me to work late? I'm fine. You want me to redo your work in time for the meetings? I'm fine. You want me to babysit as well? I'm absolutely fine. What's happening now? Well, this sponge, as you can see, is ceasing to function as a sponge. If you continually ignore low-level stress and allow it to build up, and you continue to try and contain the anxieties of other people, you cease to function as a sponge. And so what stress busting does is it gives you a little bit of a metaphorical squeeze. It gives you a little bit of a hug, some self-care. And that's what I want to cover today. There are 3 parts to stress busting. The first part is to minimize the effects of stress in the moment. Because as I said, there's no point trying to deal with anything if you're so overwhelmed by what's going on. So that's the first part. I will give you some tools to do that. The second part is to be able to buffer the effects of stress. So you can withstand a little bit more before it all gets too much. But when I say withstand a little bit more, what I mean is be able to stay strong enough to take effective next steps. Reach out for help, ask somebody, say that you're struggling. Those things are effective. There's no shame in doing that. And the third part of it is one that isn't normally taught in stress busting sessions. It is about setting the conditions to create your best life, so that when you have been able to minimize the stress in the moment, when you have been able to clear that headspace and deal with the things you need to, you then don't habitually go and spend that time and energy that you have just freed up on dealing with more of other people's psychodramas. So let's make a start. Tools to minimize stress. Now, this one has been used on the NHS website a lot. People always use this one, and it's so great. That's why it's really easy. And this tool is fantastic if you're also helping someone through the point of crisis, if they're having the early stages of a panic attack. It's a really good grounding technique. It is known as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. And you can do this with me right now. Just simply look around your room and say out loud 5 things you can see. So it might be the flip chart, it might be a computer, it might be a keyboard, it might be a poster, and so on. 5 things you can see. 4 things you can touch. What can you physically reach out and touch? 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. Now, the taste one, it can be, is if you've got a drink there, you would be able to taste that. It doesn't really matter which order you use the senses, but the reason why we use them is because by actively saying what we can see, hear, smell, touch, or taste, we are getting ourselves out of our head and back into the real world. And of course, the real world, the present moment, is the only time we can really do anything about our issues. But the psychological secret of that as well is that when we are in that spiral of negative automatic thinking, telling yourself calm down almost makes it worse, because then you start thinking, I can't calm down and this is awful, and then I feel guilty about not calming down, and that just doesn't work. Or you just get more angry with somebody who tells you to calm down. But this gets you out of your head immediately, and it gets you focused and more aware and grounded in the present. So that's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. Now there's another technique which comes from dialectic behavior therapy. And this is the TIP technique, and I really like this one. And this is a great one to use at that moment when you realize, hang on a minute, things are getting a little bit too much. T stands for temperature. If you're anything like me, I get really hot and bothered when I'm stressed. So sometimes it can be about simply opening a window, stepping outside, getting that fresh breath of fresh air, or just going outside the room for a little bit. Changing the temperature is a really clever and effective, practical way you can almost trick your body into feeling that little bit better. Similar to that is the I of TIP, which is the intensity. If you're very anxious and very stressed, that is where, yes, breathing can help, but it's simply going for a walk or just changing that intensity of how you're feeling at that particular moment. You may do it with temperature, you may do it with intensity. Perhaps you can use them interchangeably. The next P is paired muscle relaxation. And this is just simply a routine, a ritual you can do, which is starting with your feet. You tense and relax your knees, your hips, your chest, your shoulders, your eyes, even your hands and fingers. And as you go through the body, what it actually does is two things. First of all, the systematic going through the different parts of the body will actually relax you anyway, because also it'll calm your breathing down and it gets you out of your head because you're thinking about something else. But what it also does is it teaches you, that's what my body feels like when it's tense. That's what my body feels like when it's relaxed. And that may help you at a later point. If you know something's not quite right, you can feel it in your body. It will help you recognize the signs that little better. So paired muscle relaxation and paced breathing is our last P. It's TIPP. Paced breathing is just simply breathing in for 3, holding for 2, out for 3. And if, again, you need something outside your head to focus on, you might wish to make your hands in a triangle. You can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, hold for 2 if you wish to. But that way it's getting you out of your head. And that's the most important thing at the point of crisis. There is absolutely no point telling yourself stuff because you're not in the place to listen. The other reason why TIP is so important is because a lot of us don't realize that stress can take the form of apathy as well as anxiety. So apathy is just when we're feeling meh, uninspired. And actually this is where TIP and intensity, the I part of it, can really help us again. Because if we're feeling meh, if we're feeling down, changing the intensity at that point, such as running on the spot or doing some star jumps, can just be that little physical boost that we need to get us going. So that's why some of these tools at the point of crisis can be very, very helpful. However, once you've done that, what you also need to do is to learn to buffer the effects of stress. And in the book, I throw down what I call the Spices Challenge. And this challenge, in the way this is written, was taught to me by Sharon Lawton. She's a coach. She works particularly with families and young people. I've worked with her a lot, and it was a pleasure to learn how she saw using the Spices wheel. It's a very common wheel, but there's a few tweaks in what the acronym stands for. So let's write down Spices. And I challenge you to use any one of these 6 categories in order to do something that makes you find peace or positivity or makes you feel happy. The more positive experiences we build up, and this is according to Martin Seligman, who founded positive psychology, the better we can withstand the roller coaster of life. And not only that, but with some of these experiences, research has even shown that at the point of crisis, the levels of cortisol we produce actually lower. There's a third thing I want to add, though. Personally, a lot of people think when I talk about self-care, it's reactive, that I'm stressed, so I need to go out and book my spa day. Not at all. Self-care can be proactive. It can be about creating the life you don't need to take relaxation measures from. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about ideal and best lives, but let's go through this Spices challenge. And the reason I say it's a challenge is because a lot of us will sit there and know what we like to do for self-care. We've got some go-tos. I'm just suggesting there may be some different ones. So let's start with the first S, and the first S is spiritual. Now, you may already meditate, you may already do yoga, you may already pray. All of those things are absolutely wonderful. You may wish to consider affirmations. You may wish to consider just simply walking barefoot in nature. You may wish to consider wild swimming. There are many ways you can reconnect with the universe, with the earth, with yourself. Any one of those can fit really nicely into spiritual self-care. Another thing which is very handy might be to have an anchoring object, a grounding object. I actually use my wedding ring a lot and I wear it all the time. And I know when I hold it, it gives me a sense of calm. And the way I kind of stack that feeling of calm onto what is effectively an inanimate object is by holding it when I'm reciting some of the affirmations, some of the positive affirmations. So that can be a way that you can almost shortcut having to do the affirmations and hold the grounding object, and it calms you. So any one of those can fall under spiritual. Some of you, if you were anything like me, I probably shouldn't admit this because I know Eloise is sitting right there. And it was when I wrote The Leader's Guide to Mindfulness. My grandfather was a Buddhist teacher. He practiced mindfulness, he practiced meditation, he did all of those things. And I know how important meditation is. But even at that time of writing, I wasn't a meditator. I knew how they worked. I knew how they were supposed to be. And I recorded a number of meditations, which are really effective. And I know that now, because now I have come to liking meditations, and I have come to, it's narcissistic, isn't it? Using my own meditations as well. So they really do work. But at the time of writing, I wasn't really a convert to meditation. I was sitting there thinking, is this right? My mind is distracted. So when it comes to meditation, what got me into it? Guided meditations. And that's actually why I recorded guided meditations as well, is because I knew guiding at least gives you a chance of finding something to latch onto and follow that isn't necessarily sit there and let your mind go blank, which people really struggle with, and we start second guessing ourselves. So meditations do work, but try guided meditations. You'll find loads on YouTube. If you don't use the ones in my book, they are all on my website as well. So just a little hint there for guided meditations and getting into meditations. Okay, P, physical. This one, people again think, oh, I don't like running, I don't like swimming, it doesn't need to be formal. Physical self-care can be as simple as doing a few star jumps or putting on some great music and dancing around your room. Anything that just gets you moving a little bit. It can even be sex, just safely and healthily. Now, this one. I love this one, and I really didn't realize how important this one was to me. Intellectual self-care. Reading, doing a cause, attending events like this, building up what I like to call a mastermind network. I've borrowed that term from Napoleon Hill. And the mastermind network is like-minded individuals, people who think like you, that you can connect with, that support you, that understand where you're coming from. Because sadly, our friendship groups don't always provide that. Our family groups don't always provide that. So having this sort of opportunity, and it's not only about talking about well-being or the business development or the personal and professional development that you can get from the books and from the authors, but if you simply want to write a book or want to write a second or third or fourth book, this is the network to be talking to. So intellectual pursuits, really important, and an extra special one. If you are a teacher yourself, so I teach, but I also choreograph. So I used to do a lot of theatre productions and I choreographed. One of the things that gives me the most pleasure is actually attending a dance class that somebody else has to prepare. It challenges my mind, it challenges my body, but I don't have to think about it. I just go there and enjoy the other aspects of that particular task, which is the performance aspects. So it is challenging, but I don't have to put the work in for it. Creative is C. Again, yes, journals, yes, songs, poetry, writing music, great. But get creative in what you wear. Get creative with a window box. Get creative with how you dress your walls. Get creative with your screensaver. There are so many easy and different ways we can express ourselves. And creativity is about expressing who we are. And if maybe we look at our eclectic lives and think, well, actually, that no longer serves me, that's no longer related to what I do, maybe it's time for a bit of a creative overhaul. All of those will help you feel a little bit more authentically you. The more we feel authentically us, somehow the less likely we are to go and chase after distractions to try and feel a sense of worth. E, emotional. We all know what that is. That's speaking to the one person who really understands us. Not the one person we've become dependent on, and usually there's more than one person, but it is having that one-to-one, genuine, honest conversation. And sometimes you may need to have that with a stranger, like a coach or a counselor, rather than having that with our friends. It's just sometimes a bit awkward, or our friends and family might have a different agenda. Usually their agenda, it comes from a place of love, but they want us to feel better. And they don't often want to listen. They often want to solve our problem. And so it might well be that you find better support elsewhere. And the last one is social. Now, that sounds very much like, yes, get out there and join a club. Actually, that's not it. That's not the end of it. That's part of it, because of course you hear GPs now doing social prescribing. But social is a lot more about finding a purpose. Social well-being might be doing something for a cause that's close to your heart, because you get all kinds of other benefits by not only meeting like-minded people, but by actually knowing you are making a difference in the world. All these little collateral benefits, all these little extra benefits, all go to making us feel so much better, and all go to enabling us to navigate better the ups and downs of life's roller coaster. And another thing you can do socially, if, for example, in your workplace, you notice there isn't a green policy or a recycling policy or whatever it might be that you know is missing, that you care passionately about, put something in there, try and instigate something. And that not only gives you perhaps an opportunity to be creative and intellectual, but you're also making a difference. So you are putting meaning into a job which perhaps you've begun to feel a little bit meh about. So I issue you the Spices Challenge. There are 6 letters, and I challenge you to do a different one every single day, just because this gets us away from our go-to, and it might open doors to many other ways we can proactively start looking after ourselves. So we've been minimizing stress at the point of crisis. We are finding ways to actually build up that buffer against the effects of stress. And if you are walking out in nature, if you are stroking a pet, if you are spending time with people who make you laugh and smile, that's when, at the point of crisis, the amount of cortisol you produce, the stress hormone, is also reduced. So it really does have physiological benefits as well. So you've cleared a little bit of headspace. Now you need to start beginning to live your best life. So we've given ourselves that metaphorical squeeze. What next? We need to know what is going to allow us and give us motivation to be our ideal selves. And I know if you have been in any of my book launch or in any of my training sessions, I love this exercise. I do it all the time. And even if you have already done this exercise with me before, it's been a good few months, I want you to do it again, because I will guarantee you priorities will have changed. Now, you may know this as the well-being wheel. You draw a circle. And this actually this change to this wheel was inspired by Eloise, in fact, because I delivered this at a training session for Pearson. And I originally used to say, divide this wheel into 8 even parts. And actually, I don't want to instruct you to do that anymore. I want you to think about, what does your best life look like? So ideal life. And then I want you to decide what goes into that ideal life and how important each segment is. And that was the question that Eloise pointed out. It was, but what if actually my career is more important than my need for a holiday? And I hadn't considered that. And now I'm saying to you, right, if career is big, so career comes here, that's fine. Family, also big. But then you also like traveling, but it's not quite as important. That's fine, make it smaller. Maybe you like seeing your friends, and that's quite big. And maybe exercising, but that's not quite so important. And so on. You choose what makes up your ideal life and in what percentage. Then this is what you do. You look at this, and on a scale of 0 to 10, you say, oh, okay, my career, I'm doing really well. I'm about a 7 or 8. So you draw your line in there. That's great. Family, not spending so much time with them at the moment because I'm working so hard. So maybe that's about a 5. You draw that in there. Travel, well, we all haven't done much of that. So that's 1 or 2. Friends, maybe you're seeing friends a bit more. So that's 4 or 5. Exercise, maybe that's something you're doing really well in. So that's something like an 8 or 9. And so on. And what this does is it gives you a visual representation to tell you whether your life is in balance or not. Because if these things are all the very things that make up your ideal life, and you can see they're skewed to one particular segment, then you know which elements you need to be working on. However, when you start working, it's not about saying, oh yeah, I'm going to move family from 5 to 10. No, it's what will move family just that one notch upwards. So from 5 to a 6, what one thing can you do to move that upwards? Now, you may say to me, and this is why I like the fact you need to assign your percentages. You may say, well, actually travel's at 1 or 2. So why not work on that first? The answer is there. Because family means more to you. It will make a bigger impact on your life if you work on family. So that's how you use this well-being wheel. And I redo mine every 3 months or so because my priorities change. And this way I keep a track of which direction I'm actually aiming for. So that's a great thing you can do. Now, to protect your time in order to work on those things, you need to learn to set some boundaries. People don't like it when I say no is a complete answer, because we all go, oh, no, I really, I don't want to say no to people. I feel rude, I feel guilty. And it's a real shame, and I get it. I do get it. So here are some tips for setting some boundaries. Tip number one, and practice these phrases. The more we practice, the more natural they become. Tip number one, don't say yes when you're in a good mood. Say, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later, okay? I'll tell you later. If you want to add a little bit of embellishment, I don't have my calendar on me right now. I'll tell you later. That gives you a little bit of time in order to think of an excuse or decide whether you really want to do it. I do see a question that's come up. I am going to answer that. It's a really good question, and I'm actually really glad you've asked that. So I'm going to answer that. But let me just finish off my boundary setting first. So that's number one. Number two is set boundaries on the time you're going to offer. Yes, of course I can help you, but I can only do it from 5 till 6. So actually be clear, set boundaries on your boundaries. Or I can see you at 2 p.m. and be very strict for 15 minutes at 2 p.m. 3, this is one of my favorites. And this one actually I found the most helpful, whether I'm talking to a loved one or talking to a client. And that is, how best can I help you? And this one is so powerful because this way you don't go straight into problem solving mode. What you do is you elicit more information, and it throws the power back to the other person. So they actually have to think, oh, well, what would benefit me the most? So that means any intervention that comes out of that is actually going to be more helpful than you making assumptions and just jumping straight in. Another nice one is signposting. And that is, I'm so sorry, I can't do it, but I know a person who can. That's a really nice way of helping, but not actually having to do it yourself. And a tweak on that, a variation on that theme, is if you have a pre-prepared template that you can use. So if, for example, you know there's a report that always has to be written at work, or you know there's a certain procedure that always needs to be followed if you're going to write something up, then have that and use it as a here's one I made earlier. If you've written one yourself before, then just maybe take out the actual population of the structure, but just keep the structure in place and give that to people. Again, especially 3 and 4 are about empowering other people. Because if you always solve their problem, all you're actually going to teach them is to become more dependent on you. That's not helpful for you. That's not helpful for them either. So again, that's just a really nice tip for anyone in a position of leadership. So before I go on to the next bit, this is a really nice question. And that is, can stress sometimes be a positive thing? Yes, yes, yes. Well, yeah. Stress is simply the physiological response to a challenge. That is literally and boringly what stress is. So our body is facing a challenge of some sort. Our heart rate goes up, our adrenaline starts pumping, we get very narrow in focus, we divert the energy from things like digestion and sleep so we can actually focus on what we're going to do. If I'm driving late at night and there's rain pouring down, the last thing I want to be is relaxed. That's my body. It's going to respond to the challenge. So yes, absolutely, stress can be a very positive thing. Right now, I will be eliciting a stress response because I'm performing. I am delivering to you, hopefully with adrenaline going, because that way it makes me hopefully more engaging, more interesting, more even potentially charismatic, because there's a lot more vibrancy coming out. The problem is, can you come down from that? Can you get to your state of equanimity easily? And if we have normalized low-level stress, even when the heightened emotions relax, you actually may still be functioning around here. So with this much stress underneath that's still there because it hasn't been dealt with or managed or given that metaphorical squeeze, rather than being able to deal with things at a lower level. So yes, I'm not saying stress is a bad thing. It can be a very, very positive thing, but it does need to be managed, and low level stress, especially the negative effects of it, that's not healthy for us. And so that's where you get the minimizing it at the point of crisis, being able to create a buffer through self-care practices. And if you notice, none of those are particularly hard to do. You don't actually need to set aside time in order to do them. You can fit some of those into your day, and then focus on creating the life that you don't want to need to recover from. And when you have freed up that headspace, when you have got that time, you know exactly where you can direct your energy. It will be on whatever element in your life is out of balance. And that's how all three of these tools really work together. And one more point about the Spices Challenge as well, is that you will notice that some of those challenges are relaxing and some of those challenges are energizing. Again, that's important to know, because for you, you might be someone who, after a period of stress, you actually need to relax. But you might also be someone who, after a period of stress, you want to do something energizing and exciting. You almost want to recharge. They're slightly different. And you're probably a recharge type of person if you get to the end of a project and someone says to you, oh, you can relax now, comes from a place of love, and you think, I don't want to relax. You don't know me at all. So be aware of yourself. They don't need to know you, let's be fair. You need to know you. And so what I want you to do is try out some of these tools, see if they work. If things that you like and you find they work are useful, then keep doing those particular things. If there's some things where you think, oh gosh, no, that doesn't suit me at all, that's fine. You don't have to use it. Remember, learning's that pick and mix. But I think that is the point I'm trying to make. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful if you tweak the ideas, if you use the ideas, if you teach the ideas, if you make those yours, your way of building up your mental and emotional fitness. And if you choose not to because you're just too busy, you're okay, you can cope, then that is absolutely fine. So thank you very much for your time. I do have other exercises should you wish, but I'm also happy to answer any questions. Not on my meditations in the Leader's Guide to Mindfulness.
I've made a point about that, but yeah. Thank you so much, Audrey. That was fantastic, and I know I've noted down a couple of things myself. You know, I was reading the book alongside you writing it, but I really liked sort of anchoring yourself in the moment with something physical. And I love this. Don't say yes when you're in a good mood. That's one for me for sure.
Oh, that's totally top of my list. It's confusing enthusiasm and excitement with genuine passion and wanting to do it.
Yeah. So we've got a bit more time. If you've got any questions for Audrey, you can use the Q&A function, or you can raise your hand, and we will sort of let you speak if you want to let your voice be heard. And we've got another question from Patsy. Yeah. What is the best way to recognize when you're stressed, particularly when you're not used to it?
Oh, Patsy, you know what? I was going to say it in the session and forgot, so I'm so happy you asked that. It's actually about getting more in tune with your body. So things like the paired muscle relaxation will already give you an inkling as to how my body feels at a point of stress, or how it feels when I'm relaxed. And if you are doing that as a regular thing, what you might also find is you go to tense your shoulders and think, oh, ouch, actually, they already are stressed. So being more aware of your body is one thing. Another thing is similar to that, and it's doing the body scan. Now, a lot of people do the body scan. I talked about it in the mindfulness book, to relax you. And that's simply just going through from your head to your toes, or toes to your head, being aware of your feet, your knees, your torso, and so on. But again, by doing the body scan, you can get used to how your body feels. But I like to do the emotional body scan. And the emotional body scan is when you take yourself through a series of prompts, but then feel where you feel those emotions. Now, the series of prompts include, think of a time you feel happy, and feel where you feel that. You might feel in your head or your heart or your stomach. Then think of a time where you felt angry. Again, recognize where you feel it. Then think of a time where you felt at peace, and then sad, and then loved. And you go through these emotions, always end on a positive, and you will notice you are likely to feel them in slightly different places. So I know if I'm feeling confident in myself, it's in my head. A lot of people will say gut, and a lot of people will say chest. For me, it's there, and I know it. I can wake up in the morning and go, yes, that's gonna happen today. If I'm unsure, it's in my gut. And the minute I notice that, even if it's something as simple as online shopping, I will leave it in my basket a little bit longer and wait. So that can be another great way to start recognizing stress. And another one, which I know we don't really like, is if somebody tells you, ask you, are you all right? Maybe listen to them and maybe question, hang on, what is going on right now? Is there something I have to deal with? There is one more, but I'm very aware I'm sort of going on. But this one's quite a new one to me. I haven't quite thought it through to teach it in the best way, but I really, really like it. In acceptance and commitment therapy, they do an exercise where you're told to hold a file up in front of your face, because that's like all the emotions and the stress that you're carrying around with you. And what it does, this exercise does, is it teaches you, if you carry on holding it, it distracts you, it stops you engaging with people, you can't concentrate, and so on. The way I've tweaked this is I want you to think about the actions that you do in order to try and alleviate the stress. So just as an example, if that stress is that voice in your head saying, I'm not good enough, you're just not good enough, other people are so much better than you, do you go and chase qualifications? Do you try and become a people pleaser? Do you try and are you a high achiever? Because that is effectively the same as holding this in front of your face. It distracts you. You spend money on doing all of those things, and you stop dealing with the voice in your head, which is only a voice, in a healthy way. Instead, you're going out there and trying to do more stuff. So sometimes it's about recognizing, do you fall into any patterns or habits which exhaust you? And you start thinking, hang on, I thought I liked this, but I really don't. That could be a really good way of knowing whether you're stressed or not.
And we've got they're coming in now. So do you recommend a certain scent, i.e. essential oils, for the smell part of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as a stress buster?
If you like them, and be mindful of pets here, because some pets, essential oils can be quite dangerous for them. But if you like a certain smell, great. A lot of people come to lavender as a calming scent, and it has got calming properties. However, not everybody likes lavender. So if it's a scent that you like and you can attach to it, perhaps it's a perfume or an aftershave even of someone that you love. Or even a scent that reminds you of a safe and happy place, that can be very effective, because scent is one of the only of our senses, in fact, that doesn't go through the thalamus. It just gets us straight away. So it leaves a stronger imprint, which means that scent is a really great way of anchoring ourselves, but make sure it's a scent you like. So there's no right answer or wrong answer. Yes, it's very effective, but choose one that you like, and remember, it may not be the same for other people.
I like the idea of maybe your beloved's scent. I think that's a great idea. Here's another one. Have you any recommendation on how to recognize emotions or feelings? Having gone through an extended period of stress, I have trouble recognizing my emotions other than anxiety. I think we can all relate to that.
Oh my goodness, yes, and this is a beautiful question. I'm going to give you a starting point, and that is if you Google something called the emotion wheel, and what you'll see is it's a wheel, and you'll see the standard emotions: sad, happy, fearful, angry, and so on. But what you'll then see is two emotions coming out of sad, and then that might be, I don't know, loneliness and rejection, and then two coming out of loneliness and two out of rejection, and it gives you more emotions. And what you'll be able to do is you might be able to look at this wheel as a starting point. It's just a starting point, and say, I think I'm feeling sad, and then almost follow the trail to see what it is you're really feeling. And just be aware, the more you get into that trail, the more painful it can actually be, because it's quite easy for us to say I'm sad. It's quite difficult for us to say I'm lonely. So just be aware of that. But the emotion wheel is a great place to start, and I think that's probably the best way, because that way, if we can cognitively understand or label some of those emotions, we are better able to understand how we're feeling and actually do something about it that's effective.
Fab stuff. And then we have a couple that sort of came in before the session. So how do you calm yourself when you're panicking?
You could try the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but something that you can do, and this works for some people, is channel the anxiety another way by running on the spot, or doing star jumps, or doing something which makes your brain think, I'm not panicking, I'm exercising. Because as I said, stress is a physiological reaction. It's just the same physiological reaction as if you are running. If you're running because you're exercising and doing a 5K, you're going to be panting, your adrenaline's up. All of those same things are happening. So one thing you could try and do is channel it so you understand the emotion differently, and that might create the headspace. It's almost tricking your body. So give that one a go. It does work for some people.
Great. And last one, how do you get to sleep when you're thinking about problems? So anything relaxing?
Well, first of all, you may want to have a bedtime routine and come off social media and various other things before you try and go to sleep. But if you are, and I know I'm going to get a kickback on this one, because someone is going to haul me up on this, but bear with me. If you are lying in bed and you are going, I've got a meeting tomorrow, and I've got something, and you are really going over all of those things in your head, and then you're telling yourself, oh, I can't sleep, and there's the clock, and oh, it's awful. Get up. Please do not associate bed with panic, fear, and anxiety. Change the association, because otherwise, next time you go back to that place which should be restful, you're going to generate the same feelings. And that's the problem that a lot of students had when they were working in the room that they were staying in. They were working in their student accommodation. At least make the bed, or the head of the bed, a place for relaxation. Now, the pushback that I get all the time on this is, but sometimes when you're trying to sleep and you're relaxed, isn't it better to stay in bed even if you can't sleep? Yes, but the answer is in what you've just said. If you're relaxed, if you are there going, actually, I just can't sleep, but I'm cozy and I'm warm, fine, stay there, shut your eyes. That micro sleep is probably going to be just as good, at least if it's just for one night, that will be fine. But if you're panicking and you're going over things in your head, that's the danger. That's when I'm saying get up, do something, go somewhere else. Go think about it somewhere else if you need to, but don't associate bed with panic.
Great. Well, thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. So just to sort of finish off, how can people stay up to date with what you're doing? Do you get any sort of social media or other things other than the book to plug?
Yes, you can definitely check out what I'm doing on my website, which is www.draudreyt.com. But Every day I release a 1 minute on TikTok, but I also share it to Instagram, which is at Dr. Audrey T, and my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Audrey Tang Tools to Thrive. And that is a 1 minute daily reminder of some topic or of something that we can do just to make our lives that little bit better. So that I'm very active at doing that. And I'm also on Twitter at Dr. Audrey T. So you can follow me on all the socials.
Fab. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks to everyone attending, and thanks to anyone watching this on demand. I hope you'll tune into our next session, which is going to be on Thursday, the 23rd of June, with Richard Newton. He's the author of The Management Consultant and The Freelance Consultant. And his masterclass will be on how to set up as a freelancer and sell your skills or services. So it'll be a bit different, but I'm hoping that, even if the idea of starting a business is just a sort of kernel or just a tiny thought at the moment, that it might be interesting for you. So thank you everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Eloise.
Cheers.
Play some music.